So, just say your name and where are you from?
Okay. I'm Natalie Robinson. First goof.
Yeah, no good.
And I'm from Knoxville, Tennessee. Originally from Bristol, Virginia, on the Virginia side.
Okay, so let me just.
I'm Natalie Robinson. I married, I married Mitchell in 1951 after I had been in Knoxville a year and a half. That was kind of the big deal.
All right, so where were you born?
I was born in Bristol, Virginia, which is 120 miles north of Knoxville. And my parents, don't ask me why, they left Knoxville after my father came home from World War One.
Okay, so they left Knoxville from after World War I and went to Bristol.
I think they must have come to Knoxville first, and then they moved to Bristol.
So what were your parents' names?
My father was Hyman Alex Levison, and my mother was Ella Copeland.
Where was he from? Hein.
Hein?
Yeah.
He was born in Farner, Tennessee. And Farner is a small community on the south area of Knoxville. And there are no records because there was a big fire in Benton, Tennessee, and records were destroyed. So he was, he came back from World War One, and I imagine fairly immediately he joined his brother in some type of ladies' shoe business. And then, for some reason, they moved to Knoxville and then to Bristol. I don't know why. In the meantime, my father lived in the mountains, which we had never paid much attention to. His community there, or his awareness of the Knoxville vicinity. My mother was much more involved in his activities. You know, she was part of the party crowd at that time. She was a little younger.
What does that mean, part of the party crowd?
I don't know. She knew, she knew some of the names, Ben Winnick and let's see who else, Sylvia Finkelstein, and she just was part of the crowd that was dancing and partying to the extent that they all did. So.
Okay, and where was she from?
Where was it?
Your mother.
My mother was from Knoxville. She was born in Knoxville.
She was born in Knoxville?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, where?
I don't know where. I don't have any idea.
Do you know where her family was from? Where were they from?
No, her mother had been married before, and they opened a grocery store on West Fifth Avenue, and I think she was probably busy making kraut in what do you call those things? Urns or tumblers or something, and they had cranberries in them. And all I know is we came to visit her, and that's what my impression was, that she was making kraut.
Okay. Do you have any other memories of her?
She was a little lady
Okay.
with funny clothes.
What was funny about it?
I don't know. I just remember thinking that she was a little funny, small person. And she had four children. She had Betty, who was older than the other children. But then there was Frida, my mother, and Reuben. I believe that was it. Maybe there were more, but
So-
they died early or whatever.
Those are your aunts and uncles, huh?
Yes.
Do you remember them well?
Mm-mm. We didn't live in the same community. After they moved to Atlanta, my other grandmother was there, was in Bristol. Maybe that's why they moved, I don't know. But we didn't get any of those questions answered before we, you know, parted.
Just,
So now you were saying some of your family was from Lithuania. Who was from Lithuania?
As far as we know, the two grandfathers were both from somewhere in what used to be Poland, then it was Russia, then it was Poland again, and back and forth for several decades. But they were all poor, and they came in the 1890s. My father was born in 1895, and his mother must have been in this country already because he was born in, what did I tell you?
Okay.
Harner, Tennessee, which is near the area that was called the Copper Bowl of the South, which was, okay. The Guggenheims owned most of the land pertaining to copper. And around copper, there was a whole industry that grew up in the mountains. You could hardly get there. Little, what do you call those trains that are narrow gauge trains went up through the mountains and came near the Georgia line. But I don't know when they closed the copper mines, but it was devastation for miles around, miles.
How did your family come to be in Tennessee?
Well, I don't know separately how they got there. My father's father got a job when he got off the boat. And where the boat landed, we think was Baltimore, but nobody knows. And they met him at the boat, and they shipped him to the mountains.
that's how it happened.
That's how it happened, something like that. We might have made that up, I don't know. But he was, he got up, it's around the Georgia line, and it's the tail end of the Smokies and whatever else mountains came down that far. And he ended up selling railroad ties to whoever put the railroad in. I don't know who that was. And he let's see. He was kicked by a horse, and my grandmother, for some strange reason, took him to Knoxville. He could have gone to Chattanooga, which I think was closer, but maybe she had a ride, maybe she had a driver, maybe she had a wagon. I don't know what took her to Knoxville, but she landed there, and he was, I think, hospitalized for a month or two, but then he died. So she didn't, I don't think she went back to the mountains. She um, she, let's see.
Opened a boarding house?
Huh?
She opened a boarding house?
She opened a boarding house, that's right.
This is your grandmother.
My grandmother, on my father's side.
Mm-hmm.
And she operated a boarding house in Knoxville. And then a young man came through who was going to live there a little while and travel out from Knoxville. And his name was Max Taylor, and he was a brother to a man in Morristown, Tennessee. But she ended up marrying him, and he didn't travel too much, I guess, anymore. But he became a parent to
He became a what?
a parent.
Uh-huh.
As a second husband to the
Right.
grandmother, he
Mhm.
became a parent, and he lived with one or the other of the children. I don't know how long, a long time. I knew him, and I think my brother knew him, and the family that stayed in Bristol also knew him. So he was quite a fixture in the family.
What was his name again?
Max Taylor.
Max Taylor. Okay.
And he, I don't know much about him, except he was a very,
And your parents you said your parents had a store?
I think my father and his brother opened ladies' shoe stores,
Uh-huh.
and they had a chain that went through Johnson City and a place in North Carolina, I've forgotten, and lots of, well, whatever.
Do you remember going to the shoe store yourself as a kid?
Mm-mm.
No.
There was a sign outside that said
What was it called?
Levison's Bootery.
Levison's
Bootery?
Uh-huh.
Levison's Bootery.
Okay.
Bootery. I don't know where that word came from, but
Okay.
they were, there was several stores in Bristol.
Do you know how your parents met each other?
No?
No.
I
No.
don't know how they met.
Were they fixed up?
I don't know. I don't know anything about how they got together.
Really?
But Knoxville never had a very large Jewish community. They were, traveling through the mountains. Different guys came through, and that's how they.
So, there were two things that you got from Bubba Copeland. One is the candlesticks,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And the other was the mortar and pestle.
I don't know where that is.
I've got it.
You've got it?
I've got it.
Oh,
I've got
you've got it. I didn't know you had it.
it. So, tell us about the candlesticks. Did she ever light those candlesticks?
Not that I remember.
Not that you remember. Did your mother light them? She slept them all the way over from Europe and didn't light them?
They don't match. They're four,
Mm-hmm.
and they're different sizes and different. They don't really belong together, but they've survived.
They've
And
survived.
they came from what was the name of that place?
Lithuania.
Lithuania. The reason we know that is that my daughter Rachel and I went to Lithuania,
Oh.
and I can't remember much about that trip. we went lots of different places with a couple, and we thought that the candlesticks came with her when she came over here, which was about. I think she was already engaged. I don't know.
Okay. How about the mortar and pestle? Do you know anything
I
about
don't know anything about them.
it? Mm-hmm. But it's definitely from her.
I don't know that either. I don't know. I was the oldest, and I have two brothers. So we left when I was 6 years old, so I don't have too much memory of the home life. The other grandmother,
You left where?
Bristol.
Bristol.
Okay.
After the crash of 29, I think they lost their stores. And then in 32, the grandmother died.
Uh-huh.
And they didn't have a whole lot of reasons to stay in Bristol. And my father got a job after the
A little louder, please.
let's see, my father got a job with Darling Shops, which was just a chain of ladies ready to wear that was being created. Learners was created, and Three Sisters, and Darling Shops, and there were more. There were plenty more. And retail was coming back after the crash of 29. So, let's see.
And what were your brothers' names?
My brother's names? What are my brother's names?
You know your brother's name.
Jarvin,
Yeah.
Jarvin, Samuel Jarvin,
Mm-hmm.
and Cheryl, no, that's a child. Let's see. Give me a hint.
He comes to meet you on Sunday mornings for breakfast.
Oh, Gilbert, right. Got that. My youngest brother is 11 years younger than I am, and he comes for Sunday lunch now, and I listen to the first program is on CBS, and he listens to that, and then we have a discussion over lunch. If we don't like it, too bad.
Hey, what was it like in your house growing up?
You know what? I just don't remember much of anything. We lived on first we stayed in the house with my father's mother and my Uncle Morris and Aunt Sylvia and their two children. We had a big crowd in that one house. And then what happened? Morris and Sylvia must have made it pretty good, and they moved out. And my father's sister, Sarah, her husband worked at Citizen Lumber. That's all I know about him. And they had one child, Neilin, Neilan, and let's see, Neilin Burt. That's all they had. And
Where'd you go to school? What schools did you go to?
don't remember anything.
Oh, okay.
Bristol was unique in that the main street that divided Tennessee and Virginia was divided by a line down the main street of the city.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know much about it except that
Well, what about growing up in Knoxville? Because you left Bristol when you were 6, right?
I left Bristol, then we went to Macon,
Oh, Macon.
Georgia, for about a year. He worked for the Darling Shops.
Okay.
And then they decided he was, he knew enough about business that nobody knew too much.
So then you went to Knoxville?
So we went to Bristol for about a year or a year and a half, and then they moved him to Atlanta,
Oh.
and Atlanta, and we stayed there probably about 10 years. I
Okay.
stayed there about 10 years.
And
They
so what do you
stayed-
remember about growing up in Atlanta? What was Atlanta like then, and how did you like it?
Oh, it was, maybe had 12,000 Jews. I think that was probably a big group at that time. Now it's over 100,000.
Mm.
So they've come from all over to Atlanta, and the whole town's grown up bigger. And we went to, the school we went to was Samuel Inman, and I think I entered 3rd grade. And we had a long walk.
Back in the day. Walk to
Back
school.
in the days. And I made a good friend. My best friend was Barbara Kaplan. I don't know. Um, but we would go outside, you know, my mother worked and her mother worked, so after we got home, we would go outside, whatever we were supposed to be doing. I guess we did.
What'd your mother work? Where'd your mother work?
Yeah, Darling Shop.
She worked with your father.
Yeah, and that was just on what street? Well, we worked Darling Shop near Rich's, and then as things progressed, they moved uptown, and it became an accepted, you know, wasn't just a ragtag store, it was a store. And Mother went, I think she got the layaways. And then he hired me and Barbara to get the layaways.
To trace down the layaways to make sure they paid?
Yeah, it was upstairs somewhere where people came in and put $1 down,
$1.
and we were about 14, I guess. And upstairs they hung all these clothes that people put $1 at weekly. And finally they would pay them off or put them back in stock.
So you're paying $1 weekly for a year? How long did it take to pay off at $1 a week?
The dress might be $10.95 or
I see.
$14.95. There were no, you know, big fancy clothes.
Mm-hmm.
It was across from Davison-Paxson, which is on the main street of Atlanta. It was on the main street. It moved. It moved around, but it was a big store. Rich's was at one end of Peachtree Street, and Davison's was at the other end. That's about all I know about
That's
that.
about all you know.
And now you go back to Atlanta. You have your son and grandchildren are there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you go back there.
I have a brother
Yeah.
and a girlfriend.
Mhm.
And
Sister-in-law.
and a nephew, Richard,
Uh-huh.
and his wife, Beth. And
Faye.
let's see,
Faye is there. Faye and Lori.
oh yeah, I forgot about them. Faye Gluck, who moved from Knoxville to Boynton Beach and then back to Atlanta.
And now Lori is there too.
Yeah,
Buck.
Lori is there.
So
We lived in an apartment, and the Kaplans, my friend Barbara, lived next to us. Then it was time to go to, what did you call it?
college,
No, high school.
high school.
High school. Junior high. So my friends were all going to a school called Bass Junior High, and I chose not to go there just to be part of the crowd. So I went to a different school.
You didn't want to be part of the crowd?
No.
Were there mean girls? You didn't want to
No, I just chose a different school.
be? You just want an independent spirit?
I guess that was it. So this school, 14, 15, I guess by the time I was 15 or 16, in that school, I had a friend that wasn't Jewish. It was different. It was quite different. So I had a friend, let's see, then I don't know. I went a different route.
Okay. Did you like that school?
I liked that school. It's called O'Keefe. So
O'Keefe.
it was not very...
In Atlanta still,
in
right?
Atlanta.
And what about high school?
That was that high school? No, in high school, that was a mixed school, girls and boys. And then they went to Grady High, boys, and I went to girls' high. just girls, no boys. So that got us through 3 years. And then I was a mid-school, mid-something. And I went, my friends were all 6 months older than I was. So Barbara went to Illinois, and Charlotte went to Ohio, and another friend went somewhere. So I decided I wasn't going where they were going, and I went to Wisconsin.
You went to Wisconsin for college.
She did.
Oh.
She wanted to do something different again.
And how did you like it there?
Loved it, but I didn't stay too long.
Oh.
You had to take, well, we went to see Benny last year,
Uh-huh.
Faye and I, and but this was 25, 30 years earlier, and we went to, I had started in January, and I got there, and the snow was over my knees, and I went to class, but I was determined I wasn't going to stay there with, too
Because of the
long.
snow. Where'd you go after then?
I decided I was going to take home ec, but in home ec you had to take chemistry, and I wasn't prepared for chemistry. I was unprepared. And so in January of that year, I finished the first year, and I went to summer school, economics. That was a disaster. And
What does that mean, a disaster?
well, I think I did okay because I was with the football team. And nothing was going to keep that football team from making scores and doing okay. And so there were a few girls in there, very few. And then I went back to Wisconsin, and they said I would have to take chemistry. And I chose not to take chemistry, and I decided to stay home.
Chemistry was the defining.
Yeah.
So you went back to Atlanta then?
I went back to Atlanta, and I was going to. God, you realize this was a long time ago. Barbara and I were going to New York to a business school, fashion school. We were going to be partners, roommates, and we were late deciding because her mother met somebody that she thought Barbara would enjoy. So she got married. There were 4 of us holding a hookah.
Mm.
Who was the 4?
Well, it was me, Charlotte Smithlov, and 2 more. 1 more was a really good friend of hers, and the 4th one I don't know.
And did you
I didn't know you held a clip at a wedding.
Did you stay in touch with Barbara for many years?
Yes, I kept up with her. She went to Illinois, I went to Wisconsin, and we kind of split up for a while because she got married.
Yeah.
She wasn't.
And where did she live where did she live after that?
She lived in Atlanta.
Oh.
Oh no, her husband was.
She's at the same facility as
Oh,
Claire.
okay. So she's
She
an old
married
friend, huh?
Sydney in like late summer, and they went off to South Carolina because it was still Army time.
Yeah.
And then I didn't know what I was going to do, and then I went to New York to visit my aunt that lived in Bristol, but she also had a house on the ocean.
In New York.
No, it must have been New Jersey, Asbury Park.
Asbury Park.
New Jersey.
I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So that's Aunt Sylvia.
Aunt Sylvia,
So you went to Asbury Park.
right. And Nita was there, and we went up and down the party. Everybody was partying on on the ocean.
On the
On the
ocean.
Jersey Shore.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, very good.
So when did you meet Mitchell? How did you meet Mitchell?
Wait, she spent a
Oh,
year.
sorry,
She
sorry.
spent a year in New York. You
Oh.
spent a year in New York.
No, when I was in school, I went to school and I got in and I was fine
In New York, you went to
in
school?
New York.
Oh.
Yeah,
2 years.
she's a Manhattan girl.
Oh.
I stayed 2 years. Then I went back to Atlanta and I got a job with a lady who was she was a graduate of that school. That's right. So she had to take me in.
So she went to a fashion design school called Toby Coburn.
Mhm.
And where was it?
On the corner above Bergdorf Goodman, and I guess it was on the 3rd floor or something like that, 4th floor.
Hmm.
And we could not get in the hotel for girls. It was already filled. So they sent 2 of us, the last 2, down to 23rd Street, and 2 more girls from Scranton. They were twins, I think, twins. And the father was a pharmacist. And we were there. And they never knew where we were. You know, it was just the place they put people, like in jail.
Place they put people in jail. Okay.
Well, I mean, it was just, they didn't have any place else to put us, and they put us there. And there was a drugstore, an eating place on the corner, and we ate most of our meals in that.
Is it a halfway house? What do you mean it's a place they put people in jail?
I don't think they ever knew where we were.
Did you enjoy living in New York?
Huh?
Did you like living in New York City?
Well, it was pretty exciting. We walked in the Easter parade. I remember that. With hats and white gloves. That was pretty special. Let's see. I don't know what else we did there. We had to work. This was not a school of, just getting by. You had to work.
What kind of work?
Well, how you would, sell.
Math and English? Or are you designing clothes? What were you
Well, a
doing?
little bit of both, kind of both. I don't remember much about the work.
Okay.
Okay. Once I sold a scarf for $75. That was the highlight of my career. We were with some people last night, and she had a scarf on, and she was talking about scarves and accessories and things like that. She's a wealthy woman, and all I could think about was that scarf was $75, and I was
When you were in New York, you sold it?
I was in New York, and
Wow.
they put you out, Christmas time. They put you in a store. So I was, what's the name of that store? Denmark. No, Denmark, yeah. Something like Denmark. And so, but then we went back to school.
And you go back to Atlanta? Tell us
I
about
went
that.
back to Atlanta, and I worked in a very nice ladies' 3-story building store, and it wasn't far from where my father was, and he took me down. I rode with him every day, and then he let me out at the corner, and I went in, and I had 3 very pleasant years there. 3. And then Uncle Morris wrote me a note, or I guess called me up, I'm not sure what. He said, if I thought I would ever want to go back to New York, he had a place for me in Knoxville, and then I could learn to buy. And so I caught on. So I decided it was time to make a change, and I went to Knoxville. Although I had always said I would never go to Knoxville because soot would fall on your shoulders as you walked to work.
Why would soot fall on your shoulders?
Because it was TVA and they just had finished all the dams and the whatever,
Tennessee Valley Authority?
and the Tennessee Valley Authority, and it was the highlight of TVA, really, I guess. I didn't know that. But then I was at Knoxville and I was living at the Farragut Hotel, and that was, I didn't know that, but that was like notoriety if you were living at the Farragut. Nobody, no girl ever lived, ever did that. So anyway, I was staying at my cousin Babe Faye, which was my father's first cousin, and she said, "I'm gonna get you a date." I'd just been there, like 2 days, and she called Mitchell, and he came over, and I was coming down the steps, and I thought, "Oh my God, this is a real bum." This was not for me.
And why did you think that?
Because he had on a dark sport coat and a dark shirt and no tie. I thought, anybody dressed like that must be a bum. I was, I thought I was in high cotton then when the date was going to come, but then when he came, and we went to Whittles.
Country club.
Well, it was a hotel.
No.
Hotel. So from then on, we went to Whittles. That was about it.
So what was the first date?
That was the first date.
And was that dancing? What was it?
We first date, I think we might have gone to the center. We had a dance on the night before Thanksgiving. Knoxville was very provincial. I thought I was.
She lived in New York, see?
And 3 years in Atlanta, so I was ready for bigger times. That was about the end of the end of the era.
So you went dancing. What was it? What did you find you had in common with him?
I don't know, not much. Not much. We liked a good time. That was it. We liked a good time. We went out. I lived in Maplehurst Park, which no single girl ever did that. And we just kind of, everybody still live with their parents. I don't know. How long did you live with your parents?
Just through high school.
Through high school.
So he was living with his parents?
Yes.
He was living with his
Yeah. You didn't ever come home that I remember. Oh, no.
Not really. So he was living with his parents and he didn't wear a tie, but you went out with him. Why'd you go out with him then?
It wasn't anybody else. Melvin Robinson, I went out with once.
Uh-huh.
Guilford Glazer, I went out with once. I don't know why. Maybe I went out twice, I don't know.
So where'd you get married?
Wait, there's a
Oh,
better
sorry.
story before that. So you dated for how long?
A year and a half.
A year and a half. And then what was the deciding part? What was the deciding point?
Oh, let's see. I went to Sylvia had moved down to Florida.
Right.
And so I went to visit her in Florida. And I finally decided, I had been to Atlanta to date somebody and decided that wasn't it. So we went to Miami. We didn't come up here. This was woods. This was, although Mitchell said he was here with the Army, but I don't know. He was with Tony Bennett in the same outfit or something.
Oh.
So,
Okay.
So,
All right, so you came down to Florida.
and Anita came with me, and she was already involved with somebody else, and I don't know, we went back home, and I said, I'm gonna get married, but I think we'll get married in April. I always thought that was a good month. So we did.
So he came down here.
He closed his store, that's right. He closed his store, and with a friend that was dating Nita, he came down.
And that's when she decided to close the store.
Closed the store, that was
a test of love.
and brought some flowers. That was even more impressive. So I think that was it. That was the end of the,
Did he ever ask you formally, will you marry me?
I don't think so.
You just said,
We took a walk.
we took a walk.
That's why I'm aversion to walks.
Look what happens when you take a walk. You get married.
Yeah, I don't know.
You took a walk, and on the walk, what happened? Did you say, let's get married?
No. I don't remember.
You don't remember.
Mm-mm. But we weren't this far north. We were way down. Somewhere.
Right. So you took a walk, and then you came back from the walk and was ready to get married.
Well, we did, just about. To find a dress for Bub and my mother, we ended up with the same dress. That's like Gloria getting married and there's 7 people coming to the wedding.
Okay, so you decided to get married, and you went back home and planned a wedding
In 6 weeks.
in
5 weeks.
5
like that.
weeks.
4 or 5 weeks, yeah.
And where was the wedding? Atlanta?
No, we got married here. My folks had moved here by that
Oh,
time.
in Florida, Miami.
Let's see where they were. No, they were in Knoxville. Yeah. I was in an apartment, and they came and joined me in an apartment. And then my father opened a store, and somehow we all landed together in one store.
It's in Florida. You got married in Florida?
Where did we get married? No, we got married in Knoxville.
We got
Oh,
married
no.
in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Knoxville. Where did we go? I don't know where we went.
You went to Gatlinburg.
Yeah, 2 days.
For the honeymoon.
Right.
Honeymoon in Gatlinburg. Cool.
Honeymoon in Gatlinburg. What did the wedding end?
I don't. This long story.
So then you had several children.
Yeah, 3.
3? Yeah. What was life?
No,
baby?
first I had a miss. We went to
Miscarriage.
Bristol to tell them that I probably would not be available for too long. And we ended up in the hospital, and Mitchell was sure the doctor was a vet, not any.
You hear that?
Mhm. He wasn't sure about that doctor, but he had to go back. He couldn't keep his store closed forever, so
Right.
he went back to Knoxville. And then we ended up in an apartment. And that was, I don't remember too much.
You had me.
Oh, then we had, I got pregnant again, and we had, when did we move to his mother's? Oh, he convinced me that we could save money if we moved into Sylvia's place. She had lost her husband. And so we moved in there, and then started to build a house on Valencia.
And Faye was her roommate. Faye was living there too, right?
She wasn't a roommate, but she was going to Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that's enough.
What year did you get married? Do you remember what year it was?
Yeah, sure, 51.
51. Yeah, Faye went to Israel in the early days of Israel. She had some
Yes.
experiences.
Yeah.
And what do you remember about raising a family in Knoxville? What was that like? The whole community there does it.
The community's small.
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, right. You know, I didn't. My father was related to half of them, but I didn't. It took me a while to learn who they were and how they interacted. And there was one called Babe, and one called Sister, and one called Buster. I didn't know who they were.
Y'all had nicknames, huh?
Nicknames. And so we.
So did you come to terms with living in Knoxville instead of New York?
No.
No.
No, I'm still waiting to go to New York.
I remember you and Faye, we went out to lunch in New York once. That was fun.
We did.
Yeah, we went out to Bloomingdale's or something.
Right. We saw you in Bloomingdale's.
Yeah, that was nice.
You were younger.
I was.
AJ, I think, had just been there. He was in school, and he went to Bloomingdale's to sell carpets.
So you raised 3 kids in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Right.
And do you feel like you made a contribution to the community there? And there's a reason that you ended up in Knoxville, Tennessee?
I got married.
No, but like a bigger reason.
No,
No.
I got married.
You got married. That was it. That's the goal. That was the goal in sight, and that's what
That's it.
That's it. And you were married how long?
Oh, long. Let's see, till 2000, 60,
It was 50 years.
50, yeah.
50 years.
Oh, that's right, it was 50. We traveled because it was, let's discover this pattern of blah, blah, traveling, you know,
Incentive travel
incentive travel.
for his company.
And so we all went. I mean, certain ones went. First, it was like 2 of us, and then it got to be quite a crowd.
Where if they buy a certain amount of business, they get to go on a free trip.
Uh-huh. And
So-
where did you travel to?
Oh, first place we traveled. First place Mitchell took just guys, and they went on a fishing trip. And then it eventually turned into a much bigger, kind of thing that they had to win. And then, let's see, we started in Portugal, Lisbon, and we had so many people that wanted to go that had never been on an airplane. So we went to 2 weeks, Lisbon, and what's that little town? Cascais,
In what country?
in the country,
In Portugal?
in Portugal.
I don't know.
I don't know either. I went on that trip though. I went to Portugal with you one of the weeks.
Did you ever go to Israel?
We went to Israel 5 times, but we never went.
Oh.
We never went as
Okay.
a part of Modern Supply.
Did you enjoy your trips to Israel?
Yeah, wonderful. You can't help enjoy it. Everybody's out in the middle of the street having a good time. It was great. But I don't think it's the same way now.
Do you remember that first trip to Israel? You took us in 1967 after the
Right. About June of '67.
Seven.
It was gonna be AJ's bar mitzvah. We were trying to decide how to include the community in the party. Never mind the whole ceremony of the day.
You're talking about for AJ's bar mitzvah?
Yeah, not AJ's.
Yeah.
after AJ's bar mitzvah. For AJ's bar mitzvah, you wanted to go to Israel.
Yeah, okay, stuff. Okay, so we decided to go, and then Mitchell said, I can't go without taking my mother. She's going to want to go, I can tell you right now.
She had never been.
No, nobody had ever been.
Uh-huh.
Very few people.
Whose idea was it? Daddy's?
I don't know, we just decided.
Uh-huh.
So then he had to take my mother to look after his mother. So, so we had the three of us, the three children, and two adults, that's five, and two grandmothers is seven. I think that was it, seven. Maybe, yeah. Let's see, seven. I don't think there was anything unusual about that trip except the fact that it was still new to go to Israel. It was,
Was it after the 6-Day War?
yeah,
Yeah.
6-Day War. I don't know what year that was.
The Fixed Day War was June of '67.
Okay.
Almost 50 years ago.
50 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, we got there, and we went to some motel out on South. What was South? I don't know. But anyway,
I think we went in December.
yeah.
We went
You
in
were out of
December of
school.
'67.
Oh, December.
Yeah.
Okay.
We didn't rush there.
Was it a nice trip? A nice
Oh, yeah.
trip. Good.
A lot of things were very primitive. They had no toilet paper. No toilet paper. But, let's see, the man that carried the luggage in was a little short guy from somewhere in Europe. And when Bub saw him try to pick up a suitcase, she says, I'll carry it. So that was like the beginning of the trip of how everything was. The man was indignant that she was going to carry the luggage. That was it. So let's see. We had. I can't remember.
Tell us about what do you remember about your children when they were young? Do you have any stories about them? AJ and Pace and Randy, Razel?
We lived on a street that was just a little half circle, but it had quite a number of kids on that circle, and it's like the little neighborhoods today. They call them a neighborhood, but we just called it a circle. And
So all the kids hung out with each other, huh?
what?
All the kids hung out with each other?
Well, yeah. The parents didn't do quite as well.
What do you mean?
Well, the Nettles didn't want Jews to move in there anyway, so they were going to buy two lots when we bought the lot, and then we bought the second lot, and he was a drunk, and that's all.
An anti-Semitic drunk.
Anti-Semitic.
And you bought a house right across the street from him.
Right.
But the kids got along with each other, that's what you're saying.
Yeah, they played in the street all the time.
Uh-huh.
The boys. I don't know where the girls were.
Played in the streets too.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
They played the boys.
How'd you know he didn't want you to live there?
I think he called the agent and said he would buy both lots. We were only going to buy one,
Uh-huh.
and it didn't have that hole in it that the garage went in.
Uh-huh.
So that gave us a clue he didn't want us there.
Uh-huh.
And did you guys have a lake house? Is that what I understand?
We didn't have a lake house at the time. We had Mitchell took the lake property. I thought we were going to get a couch, instead we got a piece of property,
Lake property.
lake property. And so it was valuable, but that wasn't what I was waiting for. So we got the lake property, and eventually, I don't remember how many years later, we built a house. And it wasn't quite big enough after the boys grew up a little, and the grandchildren. So a lake, that's it. We had,
How do you get that lake house? How do you get the piece of property at the lake?
Mathis owed him money.
You gave him a piece of property instead.
It just took a while to get it. Let's see.
Did you like it out there?
Yeah, I liked it fine, but you know, the person, whoever's the host, has got to bring all the what do you call it?
Food.
I'll call it on the phone.
The food and drink and
Food and drink and the paper plates and
Eventually, we got a bathroom, but first was an orange crate up in the woods.
uh-huh.
So if you got poison ivy, you were in trouble. So
But that's where the Glucks used to come up too and hang out with you, right?
but Bob hated it. Ooh,
he hated it
hated.
all those years.
He wouldn't come.
He wouldn't.
He didn't like being in the why was it? A lot of mosquitoes? Was
You know, he was a city guy,
another New York or Philadelphia?
Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So he was not in favor of coming. And they opened a McDonald's on Magnolia. That was a big event. And so we met them for lunch after Sunday school. So I don't remember if Bob turned around and went back to Morristown, but I know he didn't like it.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
All right.
And
So
you and Faye became close though, right?
well, we were pretty close already when the year that she went to Israel. I was already at their house,
Uh-huh.
and I used to, I helped her pack going to Israel. She stayed a long time, so
Uh-huh.
I think we became,
You guys have stayed close a lot of years.
yeah, right,
That's
right.
nice.
We still are.
Uh-huh. And now you have a bunch of grandchildren, don't you?
Well, I have 7,
7.
and Faye has 7.
just go back a second to before you go to grandchildren. Did you experience any other anti-Semitism beside Mr. Neblett? Were there other places the Jews couldn't go? What
I don't remember.
Cherokee Country Club, for example, or
Well, we never tried, so I don't know if we would have made it or not.
okay. But so that was the only overt.
Yeah. And then gradually people were asked to join, and some chose not to, and some chose to be
Okay.
ready.
Okay. No Ku Klux Klan marches or anything like that.
At UT they might have had them.
At UT, they might have had Ku Klux Klan marches.
Well, they might have had some type of anti-Semitism. I don't know.
Mhm.
Speaking of UT, Natalie, you've often said that that you would recommend me for to be a member of Juvals. Could we get that on video?
I'm
What
not
is
a
the-
member, so I can't even.
What is the Juvals? What is the Juvals?
I don't even know. And once you get to a certain age, they take you in as getting the messages from different places or people. I don't know.
That's okay. That's okay.
What is a vol? Let's start there.
A vol is, what is a vol? Somebody who's just ready for the team.
Ready for the team?
Are you a fan of
What
Tennessee
team?
football? Are you a fan of Tennessee?
Well, you know, half of my life, the Vols have not been a really great winning team. One year. Let's see, ever since the coach was the big thing. If you were on the coach's
Yeah.
memorable team, I guess.
Something that you remember that sort of typifies their character or One good story about Pace. Let's start with him.
Let's see. I guess it was the year he came to Indiana.
What do you remember about that?
I don't know what happened up there.
He came up with David Pumpkin and
Right.
Richard Gluck.
That's right.
And I think it was his first introduction to college life. He's
Yeah.
never been the same since, would you say that?
Well, no, I wouldn't say that, but because I don't know too much about the years before that. But they were ready for a big time, and I don't know if they got drunk in a grapefruit
They did.
orgy.
They got drunk and David Propkin brought the PGA and we put it in the bathtub with grape juice. Got the purple Jesus. And they got drunk. It was their first.
And then they went to sleep and they didn't get up. I don't know.
Did they tell you that when they came back, or you just heard this over the years?
I don't think they told me that. Didn't have to tell anybody anything. They were,
Pace was a quiet kid, right?
yeah, he never said
Did
anything.
he ever get in trouble?
Yeah, what's his name? Ted Reback
Ted Reback?
called us and said, they were, you know, these boys got to come home.
Oh,
I don't know if Mitch went to get them or they brought them home or what.
mm-hmm.
And how about a story about Razel? What was she like as a kid?
All right. Yeah.
She was very protective of her stories.
What does that mean?
Nobody would ever thought she would have been a rabbi.
No, you don't think so?
Oh,
Were you surprised?
yeah, when she came home. No, I think by the time she decided to be a rabbi, we were not surprised at anything. Well, the year before she was dancing through the fountain. There's a big fountain somewhere on that campus. There's a big fountain.
It's
Uh-huh.
true.
And how about a story about AJ?
No, because AJ never got in trouble.
He never got in trouble.
No.
He was not ready for prime time.
Did you ever go visit him in China?
Yes, we did.
Uh-huh.
The first year, there was the man that was climbing over the tanks.
Uh-huh. Tiananmen Square.
And they pulled the plug and said, we're not going to have this. That was a year of transition in China.
Mm-hmm.
So it took a year. And then they relaxed the rules. And then they said they could have the big event that AJ had been working on.
Opening a
about
hotel?
A year. And they let's see. We did.
And did you go over there for the big opening?
Yeah, that was the second year. So we
Uh-huh.
went for the second opening. And Mitchell had to be careful because he had already had a heart attack.
Hmm.
So we went out to the wall, and he decided he couldn't climb up to where you have to go. Up.
Mm-hmm.
And but we did get to the hotel, and the place was magnificent, just beautiful. And the long bar was the highlight of the thing.
The long bar
That's what it was called.
inside the hotel?
I think there was one in Atlanta, so they wanted to call this one the long bar.
All right. And now let's talk about your grandchildren. You got 7 grandchildren?
7.
Let's talk about them a little bit.
Your oldest is?
Hmm?
Your oldest is Eli.
Eli,
Yeah.
who
What's your favorite story about Eli as he's growing up?
I don't really have a favorite street.
Did Eli ever get in trouble?
I don't think so.
You don't think
Maybe
so?
you know more.
No, I don't know, but I know they're both in Eli and Asher, both in New York now,
Yeah.
and AJ's kids are all still in. No, one's in college now, right?